There's a special kind of pain that comes from giving everything you have to people you love, only to be told that everything you gave still wasn't enough, that you were never enough, that you were just convenient. I felt that pain on a Wednesday night in November, sitting across from the man I'd devoted 12 years of my life to, watching him tell me he was leaving. Not for another city, not for a new job, for her, for the woman he'd been seeing behind my back for God knows how long. "This isn't working anymore," he said, like we were discussing a broken appliance instead of a marriage, instead of a family, instead of 12 years of my life that I'd poured into his children, his home, his dreams. But here's what he didn't know. Here's what he never saw coming. Those children, the ones I'd raised from the time they were 7, 9, and 11 years old, they weren't going to let him throw me away like yesterday's trash. They had been watching. They had been planning. And when the truth finally came out about who I really was and what I'd sacrificed for this family, everyone's world was about to flip upside down. This is the story of how I lost everything and gained something far more valuable. This is a story of how the children who weren't mine by blood became mine in every way that actually mattered. Before we dive in, I need to know, where are you right now? Are you listening to this while cooking dinner? During your morning commute? Late at night when you can't sleep? Drop your location in the comments. And if you're part of our Voices of Stehphanie family, you already know we don't just tell stories here. We live through them together. We heal together. We grow together. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to see how this unfolds. Trust me. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, back to when I thought I was building something real. My name is Stehphanie, and 12 years ago, I met David at a charity gala in Chicago. I was 32, a successful marketing director at a pharmaceutical company, living my best single life in a downtown apartment with a view of Lake Michigan. I had worked hard to get where I was, put myself through college, climbed the corporate ladder, finally reached a point where I could breathe financially. David was 41, charming, well-spoken, and recently widowed. His wife had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him with 3 young children to raise alone. When he talked about them, Emma, Tyler, and little Zoe, his eyes would fill with this mixture of love and exhaustion that made my heart ache. "I'm doing my best," he told me over our third glass of wine that night. "But I don't know if my best is good enough. They need stability. They need a mother." I should have heard the warning bells in that statement, but I didn't. I heard a man who was overwhelmed and honest about it. I heard someone who put his children first. I heard someone who needed help. And I'd always been a helper, a fixer, someone who saw broken things and wanted to put them back together. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. Looking back, that should have been another red flag. 8 months isn't long enough to know someone, to really understand what you're signing up for. But David was persuasive. The kids need stability, he'd say. They need to know someone's not going to leave them again. How could I say no to that? So I said yes, and 3 months later, I became Mrs. David Harrison and stepmother to 3 heartbroken children who missed their mother desperately and didn't quite know what to make of me. Those first few months were brutal. Emma, who was 11, barely spoke to me. She'd give one-word answers and spend most of her time in her room. Tyler, 9, was openly hostile, breaking rules, talking back, testing every boundary to see if I'd give up and leave like his mother had. Not by choice, but death feels like abandonment when you're 9. And Zoe, 7, would cry for her mama at night, these heartbreaking sobs that would shake her little body. I wanted to run. I won't lie, there were nights I'd lock myself in the bathroom and cry, wondering what I'd gotten into, wondering if I was cut out for this. But then I'd remember their faces, the pain in their eyes, the way they were desperately trying to hold on to the memory of their mother while being terrified of forgetting her. And I realized something important. They didn't need me to replace their mother. They needed me to be someone safe, someone consistent, someone who wouldn't leave. So I stayed, and I showed up every single day. I went to every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game, every dance recital. I learned to cook Emma's favorite spaghetti the way her mother used to make it, with extra garlic and that cheap Parmesan cheese she loved. I learned that Tyler needed to run around outside for at least an hour after school, or he'd be bouncing off the walls all evening. I learned that Zoe slept better with a nightlight shaped like a butterfly because her mother had given it to her. I learned to love them by learning to see them, really see them. And slowly, over months and then years, something shifted. Emma started asking my opinion on her outfits. Tyler started showing me his drawings. Zoe started calling me Mama Steph instead of just Stehphanie. We became a family. Not a perfect one. We had fights and slammed doors and terrible, terrible teenage years ahead of us. But a real one. A family built on showing up, on consistency, on choosing each other every day. And David? He was there, but distantly. He worked long hours as a corporate attorney, provided financially, showed up for the big moments, but the daily grind of parenting, the homework help, the middle of the night stomach bugs, the friendship drama, the teaching moments, that was all me. I didn't mind, or at least I told myself I didn't mind. This was what I'd signed up for, right? This was what being a stepmother meant, doing all the work of a parent with none of the credit. I loved those children. I loved them so much it hurt sometimes. I loved them enough to leave my career when David suggested it would be better for the family if someone was home full time. I loved them enough to sacrifice my ambitions, my identity outside the home, my financial independence. I loved them enough to become invisible in my own life, existing only as someone's stepmother, someone's wife. And for 12 years, that was enough, or I convinced myself it was enough, until the night David looked me in the eyes and told me he was leaving. Until the night everything I'd built came crashing down, and I realized that love, real unconditional love, doesn't always come from the people you expect. Are you still with me? Because this is where the story really begins. This is where I learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who shows up when everything falls apart. It started with small things I told myself not to worry about. David working later than usual, David being on his phone constantly taking calls in other rooms, David being distant during the rare moments we were alone together. But in a marriage that had long since shifted from passionate to practical, those things felt almost normal. We'd been coasting for years, connected by the children and the routine of daily life, but not much else. I told myself this was just what marriage looked like after a decade. This was mature love, comfortable, stable, predictable. I was so naive. It was Emma who first suspected something. She was 19 by then, home from her freshman year at Northwestern for Thanksgiving break. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she came in and closed the door behind her. "Mama Steph, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. I turned from the stove, and the expression on her face made my blood run cold. "What's wrong, baby?" She held out her phone. On the screen was a photo that someone had sent her, a photo of her father having dinner with a woman I didn't recognize. They were sitting close, too close, and his hand was on hers across the table. "This was last week," Emma said. "Tyler's girlfriend's mom saw them at that French restaurant downtown, the expensive one Dad said was too pricey when I suggested we go there for your anniversary." I stared at the photo. My hands were shaking. "There has to be an explanation," I said, but my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Maybe it's a client, a work colleague." "Mama Steph," Emma's voice cracked. "Look at how he's looking at her. That's not a work dinner." She was right. The way David was looking at this woman, with attention, with interest, with an engagement I hadn't seen him direct at me in years, told me everything I needed to know. "How long have you known?" I asked quietly.
Just since yesterday, when Taylor's mom sent me the photo. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry he's doing this to you. I pulled her into a hug, this young woman I'd raised, and let her cry against my shoulder. And even in that moment, even as my world was crumbling, my instinct was to comfort her, to make sure she was okay. It's not your fault, I whispered. None of this is your fault. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, I confronted David in our bedroom. I showed him the photo. For a moment, just a moment, I saw panic flash across his face. Then it was replaced by something worse. Resignation, relief even. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said. So it's true. David, he sat down on the edge of our bed, rubbed his face with his hands. Yes, it's true. Her name is Vanessa. We met at a conference 6 months ago. 6 months? 6 months of lying, of sneaking around, of making me feel crazy for noticing that something was off. Are you sleeping with her? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Yes. The word hung in the air like poison. I want a divorce, he said, and the casual way he said it, like he was ordering coffee, made me want to scream. This marriage, it hasn't been working for a long time. You know that. I know that you've been distant. I fought to keep my voice steady. I know that you've been pulling away, but I thought we were going through a rough patch. I thought we'd work through it. I didn't know you were already working on your exit strategy. Don't be dramatic, he said, and that dismissiveness, that complete lack of acknowledgement of what I was feeling, cut deeper than the affair itself. Dramatic? David, I gave up my career for you, for your children. I spent 12 years raising them, loving them, building a home for this family, and you've been cheating on me. They're not your children, he said quietly. They never were. Their mother died, and you filled a role that needed to be filled, and I'm grateful for that, I really am, but that doesn't mean we're obligated to stay in a marriage that isn't working. Not my children. Those words shattered something inside me that I didn't even know could break. Get out, I said. Sleep in the guest room. Sleep in your office. I don't care, but get out of this room right now. He left, and I sat there on the bed I'd shared with him for 12 years, in the house I'd turned into a home, surrounded by the life I'd built, and realized that to him, I'd never been anything more than a convenient solution to a problem. He'd needed a mother for his kids. I filled that role. Now the kids were older, more independent, and he'd found someone new, someone who excited him, someone who wasn't just the caretaker of his children. I was disposable. The next morning, David was gone before anyone woke up. He'd left a note saying he had an early meeting. I knew better. He was avoiding the conversation, avoiding the mess he'd created. Tyler and Zoe were still asleep, but Emma came downstairs and found me sitting at the kitchen table staring at a cup of coffee I hadn't drunk. "Did you talk to him?" she asked. I nodded. He wants a divorce. Because of her? Because he's been unhappy in this marriage and didn't bother to tell me. Because apparently I was just fulfilling a role, and now that role is no longer needed. Emma sat down across from me, grabbed my hands. That's bullshit. Mama Steph, you are not just a role. You're our mother. You raised us. You loved us. You showed up for us every single day when you didn't have to. He said you're not my children, I whispered, and saying it out loud made me start crying. He said you're not my children, and he's right. Biologically, legally, you're not. And if he divorces me, I have no right to you, no legal standing. I'm just the woman who happened to be married to your father for a while. Stop it. Emma's voice was fierce now, the same fierceness I'd seen her when she'd defended Zoe from bullies in middle school, when she'd stood up to her high school principal about a discriminatory dress code. Stop saying that. You are our mother in every way that matters, and if our dad is stupid enough to see how lucky he was to have you, that's his loss, but you're not losing us. Do you hear me? You're not losing us." I wanted to believe her, but I'd been in this family long enough to know how things worked. In divorces, step-parents disappeared. They had no legal rights, no custody claims. They were erased as if they'd never existed. And I was about to be erased from the lives of the 3 people I loved most in the world. Or so I thought. What I didn't know was that Emma, Tyler, and Zoe had already decided that wasn't going to happen. What I didn't know was that they'd been preparing for this longer than I'd realized. And what I definitely didn't know was the truth about who I really was. A truth my own mother had kept hidden my entire life. A truth that was about to change everything.
David moved out 3 days later. He didn't ask to sit down with the kids and explain what was happening. He didn't try to make this transition easier for them. He just packed some bags, said he'd be staying at a hotel while he figured things out, and left. Emma, Tyler, and Zoe were devastated. Not because their father was leaving. They were adults, or nearly adults. They'd survive that. They were devastated because of what it meant for me. "He's just going to throw you away?" Tyler said that night over the dinner I'd mechanically prepared even though none of us were eating. He was 17 now, a senior in high school, with his father's height but none of his coldness. "After everything you've done for us, after you gave up your whole career to raise us." "Tyler, I chose that," I said quietly. "Nobody forced me to leave my job." "Dad strongly suggested it, though, didn't he?" Zoe said. She was 15, whip-smart, and perceptive in ways that sometimes scared me. "I remember. I was only 7, but I remember you and Dad arguing about it. You didn't want to quit. He convinced you it was what's best for the family." She was right. I'd buried that memory, rewritten the narrative in my head to make myself the noble mother who'd chosen her family over her career. But the truth was more complicated. David had pushed hard. He'd talked about the kids needing stability, about my job requiring too much travel, about how his career was at a critical point and he couldn't be the one to sacrifice. So I sacrificed instead. "What are we going to do?" Emma asked. "Are you going to have to move out?" "I don't know, baby. Legally, this is your father's house. His name is on the deed. I have no claim to it." "That's insane," Tyler said. "You've lived here for 12 years. You turned this place into a home. Before you, it was just a sad house where your mom died. You made it feel alive again." I'd never heard Tyler talk about his biological mother and me in the same sentence like that, acknowledging both, giving each of us our place in his heart. It made my chest ache. "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Your father is a lot of things, but he's not cruel. He'll make sure I'm taken care of in the divorce." I was wrong about that, too. The divorce papers arrived the following week. David's lawyer had drafted an agreement that was insulting in its stinginess. Because I'd been voluntarily unemployed for 12 years and hadn't financially contributed to the household, he claimed I was entitled to minimal alimony, just enough to live on for 2 years while I reestablished my career. The house, the cars, the retirement accounts, all of it was his because he earned it. Never mind that I'd raised his children so he could earn it. Never mind that I'd managed his household, hosted his clients, supported his career advancement at every turn. Never mind that my voluntary unemployment was at his request. None of that mattered in the eyes of the law. "This is garbage," Emma said when I showed her the papers. She was home for winter break, and she'd spent most of it alternating between comforting me and rage texting her father, who wasn't responding. "He's trying to erase 12 years like they didn't happen." "I need to get a lawyer.
a good one, but I don't even know how I'm going to pay for it. Use the emergency fund, Emma said. I laughed, but it was bitter. Baby, we don't have an emergency fund. All our money is in accounts with your father's name on them, accounts I can't access. Not that money. Emma pulled out her phone, pulled up a banking app I'd never seen before. This money. I stared at the screen. It showed an account with both Emma's and my name on it, with a balance that made my jaw drop. What is this? Mom's life insurance, Emma said. The policy from the accident, the one that paid out to us kids. We've been saving it, investing it. When I turned 18, I put your name on my portion. Tyler's already done the same with his. He turned 18 3 months ago, and Zoe's planning to do it as soon as she turns 18 next year. Emma, no, that's your money. That's your mother's money, meant for you. It's our money, Emma corrected firmly. Mine, Tyler's, and Zoe's, and we want you to have access to it. You're going to need a lawyer and probably money to live on while this divorce goes through. Consider this our way of paying you back for 12 years of taking care of us. I was crying now. You don't owe me anything. I loved taking care of you. I loved being your mother. And we loved having you as our mother, which is why we're not going to let Dad screw you over. You've been protecting us our whole lives. Now it's our turn to protect you. Tyler and Zoe came home that evening, Tyler from basketball practice, Zoe from drama club, and confirmed what Emma had told me. They'd all agreed, all three of them, that I would have access to their inheritance from their mother. She would have wanted this, Tyler said. Mom wouldn't want you to be left with nothing after everything you've done for us. It was the first time any of them had invoked their biological mother's approval of me. It made me sob so hard I couldn't breathe. That night, I hired one of the best divorce attorneys in Chicago. Her name was Gloria Martinez, and she had a reputation for destroying men who tried to cheat their spouses in divorce proceedings. Let me get this straight, Gloria said during our first meeting. You gave up a successful career to raise his children full-time at his request. You have no income, no assets in your name, and he's offering you 2 years of minimal alimony? That's correct. And the children? They're on your side? Yes, they're willing to help me financially, but they're not mine legally. I have no custody claim, no... Tell me about your own family. Parents? Siblings? My mother raised me alone. She passed away 2 years ago. I never knew my father. She always said he wasn't in the picture and left it at that. Gloria made a note. Did your mother leave you anything? Property? Assets? No, she was a school teacher. She didn't have much. There was a small life insurance policy that covered her funeral and her debts, but that was it. What was her name? Dorothy Chen. Gloria's pen paused over her notepad. Chen? That's not your last name. I took David's last name when we married. Before that, I was Stehphanie Chen. And your mother never told you that you made that your father? Nothing at all? Just that he wasn't part of our lives, and it was better that way. Why does this matter? Gloria looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Because in divorce proceedings, we look at all assets and all sources of support, and sometimes people don't know about assets they're entitled to. Did your mother have a lawyer, someone who handled her estate? A man named Harold Chen came to the funeral, said he was a distant cousin who'd helped my mother with legal matters over the years. He gave me some paperwork, but I never really looked at it closely. I was grieving, and there seemed to be nothing important. Do you still have that paperwork? Why? I want to see it, all of it. Sometimes the things we think don't matter turn out to matter very much. I didn't understand what she was getting at, but I was desperate, and Gloria had the look of someone who just caught a scent of something. I had no idea that the paperwork in that forgotten box was about to reveal a secret my mother had kept my entire life. a secret that would change not just my divorce, but my entire understanding of who I was.
I found the box in my storage unit, the one place David couldn't access, the one place that was still mine. It was a small cardboard box labeled Mom's Papers in my own handwriting, shoved in the back behind Christmas decorations and old photo albums. I'd packed it away 2 years ago after my mother's funeral, too heartbroken to deal with it then, and I'd never gotten around to unpacking it. Inside were the expected things: my mother's death certificate, some old report cards of mine she'd saved, photos from my childhood, and at the bottom, a manila envelope from Harold Chin, the distant cousin who'd handled my mother's affairs. I brought the box to Gloria's office the next day. She opened the envelope and started reading through the papers inside. I watched her expression change from curious to shocked to something that looked almost like triumph. "Stehphanie," she said carefully, "did you know your mother signed a non-disclosure agreement 34 years ago?" "A what?" "An NDA, a legal document promising not to reveal certain information, specifically information about your biological father." My heart started pounding. "Who is my father?" Gloria handed me a document. It was old, yellowed at the edges, but the text was still clear. My mother's signature was at the bottom, next to a notary stamp dated 9 months before I was born. "According to this," Gloria said, "your father is Richard Chin, of Chen Industries." The name meant nothing to me. "Who?" "Richard Chin," Gloria repeated. "Real estate development, international trade, investments, one of the wealthiest men in Chicago, worth about $3 billion last I checked." The room spun. "That's not possible. My mother was a school teacher. She didn't know billionaires." "She worked for his household," Gloria said, pointing to another document in the stack. "She was hired as a private tutor for his children when she was 25. According to this employment contract, she worked there for 2 years. And they had an affair?" "That's what it looks like. When she became pregnant, Chen's lawyers offered her a deal, a one-time payment of $500,000 in exchange for her silence. She was never to reveal his paternity, never to contact him, never to make any claims against him or his estate." "She took the money?" "She took the money," Gloria confirmed, "used it to buy a small house in a quiet neighborhood, put the rest in a trust for your education. That's how she afforded to be a single mother on a teacher's salary. She had this cushion, but she never told anyone where it came from." I felt sick. My whole life I thought we were struggling but making it work. I thought my mother's sacrifices were necessary. I'd never known she'd been paid to keep my father's identity secret. "Why didn't she tell me?" I whispered. "Maybe she was protecting you," Gloria said gently. "Richard Chin is not a good man from what I know of him. He's had multiple affairs, multiple NDAs with various women. Your mother probably didn't want you growing up knowing your father was someone who paid to make you disappear." "Did he know about me? Does he know?" "According to the NDA, he was informed of the pregnancy. Whether he knows about you specifically, your name, your life, I can't say. But legally, you are his daughter." "What does this mean for my divorce?" Gloria smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who just found the winning card. "It means you're not the penniless stepmother with no career prospects that David is trying to paint you as. You're the daughter of a billionaire, and that changes everything." "But the NDA expired when your mother died. NDAs don't extend beyond the lifetime of the signatory unless specifically stated otherwise, and this one doesn't, which means you're free to claim your paternity, free to make contact with Richard Chin, free to explore what, if any, inheritance rights you might have."
I don't want his money, I said immediately. I don't want anything from a man who paid my mother to keep quiet about me. I understand that, but David doesn't need to know that. All David needs to know is that you're not the dependent, desperate woman he thinks you are. You have options, you have resources, and that puts us in a much stronger negotiating position. Over the next week, Gloria worked her magic. She sent David's lawyer an revised proposal that was significantly more favorable to me, along with a carefully worded letter mentioning that new information regarding Mrs. Harrison's family background has come to light, which substantially alters her financial picture. She didn't say I was Richard Chen's daughter. She didn't have to. The implication was enough. David called me directly for the first time in weeks. "What hell is this?" he said without preamble. "Your lawyer is saying you have family money? You told me your mother left you nothing." "My mother left me the truth. That's worth more than you think. If you have assets you haven't disclosed—" "I haven't disclosed anything because I'm still figuring out what I have. But I'll tell you this, David, I'm not the convenient pushover you married anymore. I'm not going to accept your insulting offer and disappear quietly so you can play happy family with your mistress." There was a long silence on the other end. "Who told you about Vanessa?" he asked finally. "Your daughter, the one who loves me more than she respects you right now." Another silence. "The kids'll get over it. They'll understand eventually that people grow apart, that—" "The kids," I interrupted, "are going to understand that you betrayed someone who loved them unconditionally. You're going to understand that you threw away the woman who raised them so you could chase something shiny and new. And whether they forgive you for that is up to them, not you." "You turned them against me," he accused. "I didn't have to. You did that all by yourself." I hung up before he could respond. Emma, who had been listening from the kitchen doorway, started clapping. "That was amazing!" "That was terrifying," I corrected, but it felt good. "So you really are a billionaire's daughter?" Tyler asked, joining us with Zoe right behind. "Apparently, not that I want anything to do with him." "Are you going to meet him?" Zoe asked. "I don't know. Maybe. I'm still processing all of this." "Whatever you decide," Emma said, "we're with you. You're our family. That doesn't change whether you're rich or poor, connected or alone. You're ours and we're yours." I pulled all three of them into a hug, these children who weren't mine by blood, but who'd claimed me as theirs anyway. "I love you," I whispered. "All of you, so much." "We love you too, Mama Steph," they said in chorus, and I realized that no matter what happened with the divorce, no matter what happened with Richard Chen, I'd already won the thing that mattered most. I had a family who chose me. But the story wasn't over yet, because Richard Chen wasn't just some distant figure I could ignore forever. He was about to enter my life in a way none of us expected. And when he did, everything was going to change again. The letter arrived on a Saturday morning, delivered by courier. It was addressed to me, Stehphanie Chen Harrison, in elegant script on heavy cream stationery. The return address was for Chen Industries, downtown Chicago. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Ms. Harrison, it has come to my attention that you are the daughter of Dorothy Chen, who worked in my household 34 years ago. I recently learned from my attorneys that Dorothy passed away 2 years ago and that the non-disclosure agreement she signed has expired. I would like to meet you. If you're willing, please contact my office to arrange a time. Sincerely, Richard Chen." No apology, no acknowledgement of 34 years of absence, just a polite request to meet, as if I were a business associate rather than the daughter he'd paid my mother to hide. Emma read over my shoulder. "Are you going to go?" "I don't know. What do you think?" "I think you should hear what he has to say. Not for him, for you. You deserve to understand where you come from, even if you decide you don't want a relationship with him." Tyler and Zoe agreed when I asked them. So, the following Tuesday, I found myself in the lobby of Chen Industries, a gleaming skyscraper in the Loop, being escorted to the top floor by an assistant who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Richard Chen's office was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art on the walls, furniture that probably cost more than I'd earned in my entire marketing career. And behind a massive desk sat a man who looked nothing like I'd imagined and exactly like I'd feared. He was 72, according to my mother's paperwork, but he looked younger. Silver hair perfectly styled, sharp suit, the kind of presence that came from decades of people doing exactly what he said. He stood when I entered. "Stehphanie." "Mr. Chen." "Please sit." He gestured to a chair across from his. "Can I offer you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine." We sat in awkward silence for a moment. He studied me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. "You look like her," he finally said. "Dorothy, you have her eyes." "Did you love her?" The question came out before I could stop it. He blinked, surprised. We had a connection. She was brilliant, funny, completely different from anyone in my social circle. But love? I was married. I had children. It was an affair, not a love story. An affair that resulted in me. Yes, and you paid her to go away. I paid her to have a life, he corrected. She didn't want to be my mistress. She didn't want to break my marriage. When she found out she was pregnant, she wanted to leave. I gave her the means to do that comfortably. How generous of you. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. I'm not going to pretend I was a good man back then. I wasn't. I cheated on my wife, I got another woman pregnant, and I paid money to make the problem go away. That's the truth. Why did you want to meet me? Because I'm your daughter, he said simply. Because I've known about you your whole life, and I've wondered what kind of person you became, whether you were happy, whether you needed anything. And you never reached out because I promised Dorothy I wouldn't. The NDA ran both ways. I couldn't contact you any more than she could contact me. She wanted you to have a normal childhood, away from all of this. He gestured around the office, away from the complications of being a Chen. So why now? Because you're in the middle of a difficult divorce, he said. Because my lawyers inform me that your husband is trying to leave you with nothing after you've spent 12 years raising his children, and because I have the resources to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't want your money. I'm not offering you money, I'm offering you leverage. Your husband is a corporate attorney at Morrison & Klein, correct? Yes. Morrison & Klein handles a significant amount of legal work for Chen Industries. I could make a phone call, express my concern about one of their associates who seems to be treating my daughter poorly in divorce proceedings, suggest that perhaps they need to have a conversation with him about his behavior. I stared at him. You'd threaten his job. I'd leverage my relationship with his firm to ensure he treats you fairly. There's a difference. Not much of one. Perhaps not, but would you rather have the moral high ground or a fair settlement? It was a good question, and the truth was, I was tired. Tired of being the bigger person, tired of sacrificing, tired of getting nothing in return. Why do you care? I asked him. You've ignored me for 34 years. Why start helping now? Richard was quiet for a long moment. I have 3 other children, he said finally, from my marriage. They're all in their 40s now, running various parts of the company. We have complicated relationships. I wasn't a good father to them, too focused on business, too absent when I was present. And you think you can do better with me? No, he said, surprising me with his honesty. I don't think I can be the father you deserve to have had all these years, but maybe I can be someone who helps you now when you need it. Maybe that's a start." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agendas, but all I saw was a tired old man who'd made choices he regretted and was trying to figure out how to make something right. "I need to think about this," I said. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He slid a business card across the desk. "My personal cell phone is on the back. Call me if you decide you want my help, or if you just want to talk, or if you never want to hear from me again. I'll respect that too." I took the card, slipped it into my purse. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said as I left his office. "Thank you for—" I actually don't know what to thank you for. "For not being worse than I am?" he suggested with a slight smile. "Yeah, for not being worse than you are." As I left his office and rode the elevator down to street level, I realized something. I didn't need Richard Chen. I didn't need his money or his influence or his late-in-life attempts at redemption. But I was glad to know where I came from, glad to have that piece of my history, even if it was complicated. And if his influence could help me get a fair divorce settlement, well, I was practical enough not to refuse that. The question was, what would David do when he found out exactly who my father was? I was about to find out.
The phone call came 3 days later. David's lawyer requested an emergency meeting. His tone was very different from the dismissive superiority he'd had in our previous interactions. Now he sounded nervous. Gloria and I met them at a downtown conference room. David was already there, looking pale and angry. His lawyer, a man named Thomas Winters, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Let's cut to the chase," Thomas said as soon as we sat down. "We're prepared to significantly revise our settlement offer." "How significantly?" Gloria asked. Thomas slid a document across the table. I scanned it quickly and felt my eyebrows rise. 50% of all marital assets, full alimony for 10 years, the house in my name free and clear, and, this one shocked me, a formal acknowledgement in the divorce decree that I had acted as primary parent to the 3 children for 12 years and would maintain a relationship with them as they chose. "This is generous," Gloria said neutrally. "This is fair," Thomas corrected. "Our previous offer was ill-considered." "Your previous offer was insulting, but yes, this is fair. Stehphanie?" I looked at David. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "What changed your mind?" I asked him directly. "Does it matter?" he muttered. "It matters to me." Thomas glanced at David, who gave a tiny nod of permission. "We became aware of your family connections," Thomas said carefully, "and we realized that our approach had been based on incomplete information about your circumstances." "You mean you found out who my father is," I said, "and suddenly I'm worth treating fairly." David finally looked at me. "You should have told me." "Told you what? That my mother kept a secret from me my whole life? I found out 2 weeks ago, David, at the same time your lawyers did." Chen Industries is one of Morrison & Klein's biggest clients, and if Richard Chen made it known that he was unhappy with how I was treating you, your career would suffer, I finished. "So this isn't about doing the right thing, it's about protecting yourself." "I'm doing the right thing," he insisted, "just for complicated reasons." "The only reason that matters is that it's fair," Gloria interjected. "Stehphanie has given 12 years to your family. She deserves to be compensated appropriately for that sacrifice. The reason you're finally acknowledging that is irrelevant." I stared at the settlement offer. It was everything I'd wanted: financial security, the house that I'd turned into a home, acknowledgement of my role in the children's lives. But it felt hollow, because I knew David wasn't offering this out of respect or gratitude. He was offering it out of fear. "I'll sign it,"
I said quietly, on one condition. What condition? David asked warily. You tell Emma, Tyler, and Zoe the truth, not your version where you spin this to make yourself look better. The real truth, that you had an affair, that you wanted to leave me with nothing, and that you're only treating me fairly now because my biological father has influence over your career. Stehphanie, that's my condition, I said firmly. You owe them honesty. You owe them the chance to understand exactly who their father is. David's jaw clenched, but he was trapped, and he knew it. Fine, he said. I'll tell them. Tonight. I want you to tell them tonight, and I want to be there when you do. You want to humiliate me in front of my own children? I want them to hear it from you, so they know I'm not manipulating them or lying to them. They deserve to hear the truth from the person who created this mess. Gloria was smiling slightly. Thomas looked like he wanted to disappear. Agreed, David finally said. We signed preliminary documents and scheduled the final signing for the following week. As we left the conference room, Gloria squeezed my shoulder. That was brilliant, making him tell the kids himself. It wasn't about being brilliant. It was about them deserving the truth. They've been asking questions, getting stonewalled by David. They need to hear this from him. That evening, all 5 of us gathered in the living room of the house that was now going to be mine. David looked like he was facing a firing squad. Emma, Tyler, and Zoe looked confused and suspicious. Your father has something to tell you, I said, sitting down in the armchair while they took the couch. David stood awkwardly by the fireplace. And then, to his credit, he told them everything. The affair with Vanessa, the months of lying, the decision to leave, the initial settlement offer that would have left me with nothing, the discovery of my biological father's identity, the revision of the offer because of potential career consequences. By the time he finished, Emma was crying. Tyler looked furious. Zoe just looked disappointed, which somehow seemed worse. So you're only treating Mama Steph fairly because you're scared of her dad? Tyler said, not because it's the right thing to do? It's both, David said weakly. I'm doing the right thing, just for complicated reasons. It's actually this simple, Emma cut him off. You're selfish, Dad. You've always been selfish. We just didn't want to see it because you're our father and we loved you. But Mama Steph showed us what real love looks like. She showed us what it means to put someone else first. And you can't handle that because it makes you look bad by comparison. Emma, that's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Tyler stood up, and at 6'2", he was suddenly intimidating in a way that made David step back. You were going to leave the woman who raised us with nothing, after 12 years, after she gave up her career, her independence, everything to take care of us, and you think we're being unfair? Zoe hadn't said anything. She just got up, walked over to me, and wrapped her arms around my neck. I love you, Mama Steph. You're the best mom anyone could ask for. I held her tight, tears streaming down my face. David looked at his children, our children, and seemed to realize what he lost. Not me, them, their respect, their trust, their uncomplicated love. I'm sorry, he said, but the words came too late and meant too little. Emma stood up. We're done here. Dad, you can leave now. This is Mama Steph's house. And without another word, all 3 kids made it clear where they stood. They chose me. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I walked out of the courthouse with everything I'd asked for and something I hadn't expected, relief. Not happiness, exactly. The end of a marriage is still sad, even a marriage that had been broken for longer than I'd realized. But relief that it was over, that I could start rebuilding my life on my own terms. Emma, Tyler, and Zoe were waiting for me on the courthouse steps, even though I'd told them they didn't need to come. Of course we needed to come, Emma said, hugging me tight. This is a big day. Plus, Tyler added with a grin, we wanted to make sure Dad didn't try any last-minute nonsense. David hadn't tried anything. He'd signed the papers, barely looked at me, and left immediately afterward. Vanessa had been waiting for him outside. I'd seen her through the window, standing by his car like a trophy he'd won. Good luck to her, I thought. She was about to learn what I'd learned over 12 years. David would always put himself first. Always. So, what now? Zoe asked as we walked to my car. A new car, something I'd bought for myself with my settlement money. A small act of independence that felt huge. Now, I said, we go home and order pizza and celebrate new beginnings. Can I invite my boyfriend? Of course. Tyler, Emma? I've got plans with Taylor, Tyler said, but I'll be home for dinner tomorrow, yeah? Absolutely. Emma was quieter than usual as we drove home. When the younger two had scattered to their rooms, she sat with me in the kitchen while I made tea. Mama Steph, can I ask you something? Always. Are you going to have a relationship with Richard, with your biological father? I considered the question. I'd been wondering the same thing myself. I think so, I said slowly. Not a traditional father-daughter relationship. We're way past that. But he's reached out a few times since that first meeting, just checking in, asking how I'm doing, and I found myself curious about him, about his life, his family, where I come from. That makes sense, Emma said. You should know where you come from. But it doesn't change who I am, I said firmly, or who my family is. You, Tyler, and Zoe, you're my family. That doesn't change whether I have a relationship with Richard or not. I know, but it's okay if you want more. You can have both. You can have us and also explore that side of yourself. We're not going to be jealous or feel replaced. When did you get so wise? She smiled. I had a good teacher. Over the following months, my life found a new rhythm. I started taking classes at Northwestern, their continuing education program for professionals returning to the workforce. Marketing had changed drastically in 12 years, and I needed to catch up on digital strategies, social media marketing, all the things that hadn't existed when I'd left the field. It was hard. My brain felt rusty, and I was surrounded by people 10 years younger who seemed to instinctively understand things I had to study. But it was also exhilarating. I was learning again, growing again, becoming something other than just David's wife or the kid's stepmother. I was becoming Stehphanie again, or maybe becoming Stehphanie for the first time. Richard and I developed an unexpected friendship. He'd invite me to lunch once a month, and we'd talk about everything except the past. He'd tell me about his business challenges. He was trying to transition the company to his other children and finding it complicated. I'd tell him about my classes, about the kids, about the slow re-entry into the professional world. You should come work for Chen Industries, he said one day. We need someone to overhaul our consumer marketing division. You'd be perfect. I'm not going to work for you, I said. That's not the relationship I want us to have. Fair enough, but if you change your mind. I didn't change my mind, but through Richard, I met other business owners, other professionals. I started building a network again, and when I graduated from my continuing education program, I had 3 job offers waiting. I chose a mid-size marketing firm in Chicago that specialized in nonprofit work. It paid less than Chen Industries would have, but it felt right. It felt like mine. Emma finished her sophomore year at Northwestern and moved back home for the summer. Tyler graduated high school and prepared for college in California, UCLA, far away from his father. Zoe thrived in her drama program and started talking about pursuing acting professionally. We were a family still, just a different configuration, and somehow we were closer than we'd ever been. David saw the kids occasionally, awkward dinners where everyone was polite but distant. He'd broken something that couldn't be repaired, and all of his children knew it. Vanessa lasted 8 months before David's pattern repeated itself. Emma heard through the gossip chain that he'd been seeing someone else, that Vanessa had moved out, that he was alone in his expensive downtown condo, wondering how he'd ended up there. I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that. I just felt sad for him. He'd had everything, a family who loved him, children who respected him, a wife who had devoted herself to his happiness, and he'd thrown it all away for something shiny and new. "Do you ever miss him?" Zoe asked me one night. We were having one of our mother-daughter evenings, painting our nails and watching old movies. "I miss who I thought he was," I said honestly. "I miss the idea of having a partner, but the actual man? No, I don't think I ever really knew him." "Do you think you'll date again?" "Maybe someday, but right now I'm happy focusing on me, on rebuilding the career I gave up, on being present for you guys, on figuring out who Stehphanie is when she's not defined by someone else. You're pretty great, just so you know. You're pretty great yourself, baby." One evening, about a year after the divorce was finalized, all three kids asked to have a family meeting. They'd been secretive and giggly all week, which made me nervous. We gathered in the living room, and Emma pulled out a manila folder. "So we've been working on something, the three of us, and we wanted to present it to you officially." She handed me the folder. Inside were legal documents, adoption papers. "We're all over 18 now," Tyler explained, "which means we can petition for adult adoption. We want you to be legally our mother, not our stepmother, our mother." I couldn't breathe. "But your biological mother will always be our mother too," Emma said gently. "We're not replacing her or forgetting her, but you've been our mother for 12 years. You've earned that title. We want it to be official. We want your name on our birth certificates, on our legal documents, everywhere. We want the whole world to know that you're our mom." I was sobbing now, unable to form words. "Is that a yes?" Zoe asked, smiling through her own tears. "Yes," I managed. "Yes, of course, yes." We held each other and cried and laughed, this family that had been broken and rebuilt, that had survived betrayal and divorce and heartbreak, that had chosen each other over and over again. And I realized something. I'd spent 12 years thinking I was giving everything to these children, but the truth is, they'd given me everything too. They'd given me purpose. They'd given me love. They'd given me a family. And now they were making it official. The adoption hearing was scheduled on a Tuesday morning in September. Richard came, which surprised me. We'd grown closer over the past year, but I hadn't expected him to show up for something like this. "These are going to be my grandchildren legally," he explained when I asked. "Of course I'm here." Gloria came too, dressed in her power suit and grinning like a proud parent. Wouldn't miss this for the world. But the most surprising guest was David's mother, Helen. I hadn't seen Helen since the divorce. She'd been polite but distant during the marriage, never quite accepting me as a real part of the family. I'd assumed she'd sided with her son, as most mothers do. She approached me in the courthouse hallway, looking nervous. "Stehphanie, I hope it's okay that I came. Emma called and told me what was happening today, and I wanted to be here." "Of course it's okay," I said, confused. "But why?" "Because I owe you an apology," Helen said. "I should have said something when David fired you. Yes, fired. That's what he did, isn't it? Got rid of you when you were no longer useful. I should have stood up for you, told him he was making a terrible mistake. But I didn't, because he's my son, and I always make excuses for him." She reached out and took my hand. "You were a wonderful mother to those children, are a wonderful mother, and I'm so grateful to you for loving them the way you have. The adoption is right and proper, and I wanted you to know I support it completely." I hugged her, this woman who'd never quite known what to make of me, and felt another piece of my fractured life click into place. The hearing itself was simple. The judge reviewed the paperwork, asked each of the kids if they were certain this was what they wanted, asked me the same question. This is a permanent legal relationship, the judge said. Once these adoptions are finalized, Stehphanie Chen Harrison will be your legal mother in every sense. You'll be her legal children. This isn't something that can be easily undone if you change your minds. We won't change our minds, Emma said firmly. She's been our mother for 12 years. We're just making it official. The judge smiled. Then I'm happy to grant this petition. Miss Harrison, congratulations. You have 3 beautiful children. I know, I said, crying again. I've known for a long time. We signed the papers, took photos with the judge, walked out of the courthouse as a legally recognized family. Richard took us all to lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. He was quieter than usual, watching the 4 of us interact with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What are you thinking?" I asked him when the kids were distracted by their phones. He said, "I'm thinking that you built something I never managed to build, a real family. Not just people related by blood, but people who chose each other." "It's not too late for you," I said gently. "Your other children," he finished, "are still angry with me, and rightfully so. But maybe someday, seeing you and Emma and Tyler and Zoe, it gives me hope that family can be repaired even when it seems broken beyond fixing." That evening, we had a celebration dinner at home. I cooked Emma's favorite spaghetti, Tyler's favorite garlic bread, Zoe's favorite salad. We ate too much, laughed too loud, stayed up too late watching movies and looking through old photo albums. "Remember when Tyler got his head stuck in the staircase railings?" Emma said, pointing to a photo from years ago. "I was 7, Tyler protested, and it was not my fault those railings were too close together. "You were trying to spy on me and my friends," Emma countered. "Details," Tyler muttered, making us all laugh. As I watched them bicker and tease each other, I felt overwhelmingly grateful, not for the divorce or the betrayal or the pain that it led us here. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but for the outcome, for the family we'd become through all of it. "Mom," Zoe said, and it still made my heart skip a beat to hear her call me that without the Mama Steph qualifier. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think you'll get married again someday?" "Honestly, I don't know. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm also not looking for it. I'm happy with my life right now." "You should be," Emma said. "You've earned your happiness." "We all have. We've all been through the fire and come out the other side. Now we get to figure out what comes next." What came next, as it turned out, was more than I'd imagined. My career took off faster than I'd expected. The nonprofit marketing firm I worked for promoted me to senior director within 18 months. I was good at what I did, better than I'd been before I'd left the field actually, because I'd learned patience and empathy and the kind of strategic thinking that comes from managing a household of teenagers. Emma graduated from Northwestern with honors and got accepted to Columbia Law School. Tyler thrived at UCLA, discovering a passion for environmental science. Zoe landed the lead in her high school production of Hamilton and started getting serious interest from college theater programs. Richard became a real part of our lives, not just my father, but the kids' grandfather. He attended their events, gave thoughtful, if expensive, birthday gifts, and slowly, carefully tried to be better than he'd been with his first set of children. And David? He faded into the background of our lives. He saw the kids occasionally, paid his child support on time, but he'd become irrelevant to our daily existence. The kids were polite to him out of basic respect, but the warmth, the love, the real connection, that was gone, and he knew it. He'd had a chance to be part of something beautiful, and he'd thrown it away. His loss, our gain. 3 years after the adoption, I got a phone call that brought everything full circle. It was from Morrison & Klein, David's law firm, but it wasn't about David.
Miss Harrison, this is Stephen Morrison. I'm the managing partner at Morrison and Klein. I understand you have an extensive background in marketing, and I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity with you. They wanted to hire me as their director of marketing and business development. It was a significant position, leading their entire marketing strategy, working directly with the partners. I need to be honest, I said during my interview with Stephen Morrison himself. I was married to one of your associates, David Harrison. We're divorced now, but there's history there that might make this complicated. We're aware, Morrison said. David no longer works here. He left the firm about a year ago to start his own practice. Oh, I hadn't known that. The kids rarely talked about their father anymore unless I asked directly. To be frank, his departure was not entirely voluntary, Morrison continued. There were some professional conduct issues that made his continued employment untenable, but that's confidential, and I'm only mentioning it to assure you that his presence here won't be an issue. What kind of issues? I couldn't help asking. Morrison hesitated, then seemed to decide I deserved to know. Another inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, creating a hostile work environment. We couldn't ignore it a second time. So David had repeated his pattern again. I felt a flash of pity for whoever the woman was this time. I'm not my ex-husband, I said firmly. I take professional conduct seriously. If you hire me, you'll get someone who treats colleagues with respect, who understands boundaries, who earns trust rather than exploiting it. That's why we want to hire you. Your reputation in the nonprofit sector is impeccable. We need someone with both your professional skills and your integrity. I took the job. And on my first day, walking into the building where David had worked for years, sitting in an office 3 floors above where his had been, I felt a sense of vindication that had nothing to do with revenge. I'd rebuilt my life. I'd become more than I'd been before, and I'd done it on my own terms, with my own merit, without compromising my values. Emma was in her 2nd year of law school when she came home for Thanksgiving with news. I've been thinking about what kind of law I want to practice, she said over dinner, and I've decided family law, specifically step-parent rights and adoption cases. Because of us? I asked. Because of you, she corrected, because I saw how the legal system almost failed you, how step-parents who do all the work of parenting have no legal rights, no protection. I want to change that. I want to help families like ours. I started crying right there at the dinner table. That's beautiful, Em, Tyler said. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me, too, Emma said with a grin, and it's all because Mom showed me what real integrity looks like. Zoe was accepted to Juilliard for theater. The day she got her acceptance letter, she called me at work, screaming with excitement. Mom, I got in! I actually got in! Of course you got in, I said, crying at my desk while my colleagues pretended not to notice. You're incredibly talented. They'd be crazy not to accept you. Grandpa Richard wants to pay my tuition. He called me already. Is that weird? Is it okay if I let him? It's not weird at all. He wants to help. Let him. Richard had mellowed considerably over the past few years. His health wasn't perfect, some heart issues that scared us all, and it had made him reflective about his legacy. I can't change the past, can't be a better father to the children I failed the first time, but I can try to be a good grandfather to Emma, Tyler, and Zoe, can try to be a better father to you, even though you're all grown. That has to count for something. It counts for everything, I assured him. On the 5-year anniversary of my divorce being finalized, the kids surprised me with a party. They'd invited everyone who mattered. Gloria, who'd retired from law practice but remained a dear friend.
Helen, who'd become an unexpected ally and grandmother figure to the kids, Richard and his assistant, he was dating someone finally, and she was lovely. Colleagues from my firm, friends I'd made in my continuing education program. "Speech," Tyler called out once everyone had gathered in our living room. "I didn't prepare anything," I protested. "Just speak from the heart, like you always do," Emma said. So I did. 5 years ago, I thought my life was over. I'd been thrown away by someone I'd devoted myself to. I thought I was going to lose everything that mattered: my home, my children, my identity. I thought I would never recover from that level of betrayal. I looked around the room at all the faces looking back at me with love and support. But I was wrong. I didn't lose everything. I lost dead weight. I lost a relationship that was holding me back from becoming who I was meant to be. And in the process of rebuilding, I found myself. I found my career again. I found my father. I found out what family really means. I smiled at Emma, Tyler, and Zoe. These 3 humans taught me that love isn't about biology or legal documents or whose last name you carry. Love is about showing up. It's about choosing each other day after day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. They chose me when they didn't have to. They fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. They made me my mother, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And that's worth more than anything I lost in the divorce. I raised my glass. So here's to new beginnings, here's to family, and here's to learning that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that ever happens. Hear, hear, everyone cheered. And as I stood there surrounded by love, surrounded by the family I'd built from the ashes of a broken marriage, I realized something profound. I'd never been discarded. I'd been liberated. And that made all the difference.
So that's my story. The story of how I was discarded after years of sacrifice, only to discover that the family I'd built was stronger than any betrayal. I'm not going to tell you that divorce doesn't hurt, because it does. I'm not going to tell you that being betrayed by someone you trusted doesn't leave scars, because it absolutely does. But I am going to tell you this: you are not defined by how someone else treats you. You are defined by how you respond. When David threw me away like I was nothing, I could have accepted that narrative. I could have believed I was worthless, used up, disposable. I could have walked away from the kids to save myself the pain of losing them. But I didn't. I fought. Not just for myself, but for the relationships that mattered. And the kids fought back, for me, with me, alongside me. And together, we proved that family isn't about blood. It's not about legal documents or last names or biological connections. Family is about showing up. It's about loyalty. It's about choosing each other over and over again, even when the world tells you that you don't have to. If you're in a situation where you feel discarded, where you feel like you've given everything to someone who doesn't appreciate you, I want you to know this: your worth doesn't depend on their recognition. Your value doesn't diminish because someone failed to see it. The people who truly love you will show you, not with words, but with actions. Not when it's convenient, but especially when it's hard. And sometimes the family you build is stronger than the family you were born into or married into. Sometimes the people who aren't related to you by blood become the ones who claim you as their own in the ways that really matter. David thought he was discarding me, but what he actually did was set me free. Free to discover who I was outside of being his wife. Free to build a career on my own terms. Free to understand that I didn't need him. I never had. The children he left behind,
They became mine in ways he never could have imagined. And they gave me a gift more valuable than any divorce settlement. They gave me their hearts freely and completely. So here's what I want you to take away from my story. You are not what happens to you. You are how you rise from it. You are not defined by who leaves you, but by who stays. And you are never, ever as powerless as someone wants you to believe you are. Now, it's your turn. I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt discarded after giving everything to someone? Have you ever had to rebuild your life from scratch? Have you found family in unexpected places? Share your stories in the comments. Let's build a community where we remind each other that we're not alone, that we're stronger than we think, and that our value doesn't depend on anyone else's ability to see it. If this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone going through a divorce, someone questioning their worth, someone who's forgotten how strong they are. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we're building something special here, a community of people who've been through the fire and come out the other side. People who know that being broken doesn't mean being defeated. Your engagement matters. Every like, every share, every comment helps this message reach someone who desperately needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might change by simply sharing a story. What should I talk about next? What stories do you want to hear? What struggles are you facing that we can work through together? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the Voices of Stehphanie family. Remember, you are valuable. You are worthy. You are loved. And no one can take that away from you unless you let them. Don't let them. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and remember, the best revenge is living well, loving hard, and never forgetting your worth. This is Stehphanie, signing off. But not really, because we're in this together, always.